Hello. Today we're going to have part two of working with statistics on your graphing calculator. In the first video, we learned how to input data into our calculator and then to use one variable statistics to calculate such things as average, standard deviation, median, the 5-number summary, just a variety of calculations that the one variable statistics will give to us instead of us calculating by hand. Today, we're going to address 4 issues that may arise. One question that students had is how to clear data. The second item is what if we run into errors of a variety. The third issue is what if I have 3 lists of data or 4 sets of data, etc. That is it possible to input more than one list of data? And then the fourth thing that a student asked about is there a way to organize the data from smallest to largest or vice versa? That's very useful when making a graph or a table. So those are the 4 pieces that I would like to address today. So first, how to clear data. So all of this is going to revolve around the stats button, just like we used last time. So I'm going to push stats. And just like before, it's this very first thing where we enter our data under the edit. So I'm going to push enter. Okay. So here's a list of data that I had in here, I believe, from the last video. But let's suppose I was moving on to a different set of data and I wanted to get rid of this. Okay. The easiest way to do this is to take your cursor, and by cursor I mean the black flashing rectangle here. I want you to move that up to the name of your list. Okay, so it cannot be on the first number. It has to be up here on L1. Move the cursor onto the name of your list. Then I want to clear the list. Okay, I want to clear it. Do not delete. Okay, I want to clear it. So I'm going to push clear and then enter. Clear and then enter. Do not push delete. If you push delete, it will get rid of L1 and you'll no longer have this column and your first list will be L2. If that happens, that's not a big deal. We would just have to put L1 back in, but we don't want to be doing that. We want to be pushing clear, enter. On the calculator, there are a variety of ways to do certain features. I'm showing you one way to do it. If you know another way, because there in fact is a clear list option on the calculator, feel free to use that. This is the one that I just personally prefer. So clear, enter to get a list to kind of go back to this empty. Okay. The second question that students had is, what if I run into an error? Okay, so let's just put a list in here. So let's put in 5. And then let's say that I meant to put it in a number, but I accidentally pushed the decimal twice and then 3. Okay, so something that we realistically know that's nonsense. That doesn't make sense to be a number on our list. What does it mean to be decimal 3? Okay, so syntax error. Now again, dependent on your calculator, you may or may not get a screen that looks exactly like this, but no matter what, an error will arise, okay? When it says syntax, syntax is what you typed in. That means what you typed in does not make sense mathematically. No matter what calculator you have, you'll have 2 options, quit and go to. Quit means, okay, just forget it, just get me back to the main screen. Go to, if you go down to that, will bring you to where the error occurred. Okay, so that's what I would recommend. So I want to go to. And notice that it brought this cursor here to that second decimal. First decimal was fine. It's okay to put decimals or decimal numbers on your list, but it's the second decimal that makes no sense. Okay, so maybe you meant decimal 3.3. So if that's the case, just push delete. And now you'll get a number that now makes sense, okay? And you can go through and keep putting your list in. Let's try accidentally to put a times 3, and see what the calculator says to that. So I'm gonna push enter. Again, syntax error. That means you typed a number on the list that does not make sense. So I'm gonna push down, I'm gonna go to, Again, the cursor's flashing on the multiplication sign saying this does not make sense. So I'm going to push delete. Okay, and there you can proceed. One thing I wanted to show you, let's say that you were putting a list in and you meant to only put 1 8 in, but you put doubles. You accidentally typed in 8 2 times, you only wanted to do it once. One way to salvage that instead of retyping the whole list, if you move your cursor up to one of them, you can push the delete button to get rid of it. Okay, so typically you're going to run into syntax errors when you input a data value on your list that does not make sense mathematically. And I'd recommend using that go-to option because it will bring you to right where that problem is. Okay, third question that arose was, what if I have several sets of data that I wanted to work with? So here's one list of data. Maybe I want to put another one in here. Okay, so my default is that I do tend to use L1 a lot. There's nothing special about it other than it's the first list. So by all means, you could put a second list in here. I'm just kind of throwing some numbers in there. You could put a third list in here if you want. Okay, so you can use as many lists as you want. Okay. The trick is when you go over to one variable stats, if you want to do the calculations on the list, you have to make sure that you have the appropriate list listed here. Okay, the default will be L1. If you put your numbers in L3, remember that your list names are right above the numbers, the keypad here. On my calculator, they're in blue, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, L6. And to access any of them, let's say I want to do L3, I'm going to push second, L3, and now L3 is showing up as my list that I want to calculate on. Okay, so using several lists in the calculator is not very tricky. The biggest thing is to remember to update whichever list you want to be using on one variable statistics. Okay, and the fourth question that arises for students is that they'd like to know how to organize data, okay? Especially if you have a long list of data and you would like to make a graph or a table, something where it's nice to have the data organized, okay? Here are options here. So I push the stats button. We have sort A, sort D, okay? Sort A is to sort ascending, smallest to largest, and sort D is the opposite, from largest to smallest. Okay, I would say most times you are going to want the sort A, sort ending, or sort ascending from smallest to largest, just because naturally that's what we do in graphs and tables a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and push sort A, push enter, and then it wants to know which list you want to sort. Okay, and it's going to literally go to our spreadsheet that we have on the calculator, and whichever list I tell it to sort, it's going to put it in order. Okay, so let's say I want to tell it to sort list 1. So I'm going to go to second, L1. Again, that L1's right above the number 1 key. Okay, so I'm telling it sort ascending list 1. I'm going to push enter, and then in just a second it did it. So done. Okay, now how do I access that list that's now organized? I go to stats, I go to edit, and I see my list here that now is in order from smallest to largest. Notice that it just sorted L1. It didn't sort L2, it didn't sort L3. It just sorted this first list that I told it to. Okay, if you wanted to sort the other list, you'd have to go back to sort A and do it on L2 or whichever list you are interested in. Okay, so hopefully that answered those questions that students came up with. If you have other questions that kind of came up with statistics, please let your instructor know, and we will try to get you all to be experts with statistics on the calculator. Good luck.